He was actually nervous as he sat on the bed facing her. He'd spent moons looking forward to this exact moment and thinking of what he'd say when he got here, and now he was too nervous to speak. In the end, he felt the need to begin with what turned out to be exactly the wrong thing, an apology. "I'm sorry that the letter didn't arrive on time. I never meant to worry you, I hope you know that," he said as he looked into her eyes. "Letter?" she asked, confused. The letter explaining the mummery." "Mummery? What mummery, John? What are you talking about?" Marjorie asked. "The assassin. The mummery in Lannisport. I sent a letter explaining it, but something happened. The man's horse had an accident, and so it arrived late." He saw the change come over her then almost instantaneously. First it was anger, then hurt, and then anger again. Unfortunately, it was that which Marjorie led with. "You performed a mummery. You faked an attack. Have you any idea of how Sansa felt? Of how I felt? I thought you dead, John. I cried for you. Had it not been for Fang, I'd have. Marjorie, I'm sorry, it was a mistake, an accident. Had the writer arrived in time? Had the letter gotten to you? I'm sorry. Sorry. Do I really mean so little to you? Do you care so little about my feelings, that you'd put me through so much worry, that you'd hurt me so?" "Marjorie, please," he said, his voice panicked as she got up from the bed. "My heart was breaking, John. I thought you gone from me, and now I find out it was a mummery, an act. What am I to think? How am I know what's in my heart, what's in yours, when you would hurt me so?" He realized now just how badly he'd messed up, just how much he'd hurt her. He'd tried, and though Fang he had fixed it somewhat, but he'd hurt her badly, and it made him feel terrible. "You are all that's in my heart, Marjorie. You have been for as long as I can remember. Ever since you left, you've been there. Every day when I look at your favor, I feel you there with me," he said, touching the ribbon tied to his belt. "When I look at the drawings I've done of you, and when I close my eyes, you're who I see. You're all I see. John. One day I'll be sitting on a throne. People will look to me and call me king. Do you wish to know what I'll be looking at?" he said as he moved to her and took her hand in his. "Aye," she said softly. "Wee, my queen, you." He heard the gasp, saw the tears in her eyes, and then the smile as she looked at him. He reached out and wiped her eyes, his hand touching her cheek softly as he brushed them away. "You are who I wish to be beside me. You are who I wish to be my queen, now and forever. John the First. Will you be my queen?" "Yes, yes, I will. Of course I will." She threw her arms around him, and he felt his heart swell. He felt her head on his shoulder and her cheek against his. Turning his head, he rested his forehead against her own, their eyes looking deep into each other's core, seeing each other truly for the first time. Who moved first, he would be unable to tell, but the feel of her lips on his would stay with him for the rest of his life. The kiss was soft, unknowing, neither of them sure what they were doing, and yet it quickly seemed they found a rhythm, a pattern, and when they moved away from each other they were both breathless. "John, I'm sorry, I didn't mean," she said, her face flushed. "I'm not," he said, and she chuckled as she slapped his shoulder. He took her hand and they walked back to the bed, sitting down even closer to each other and still holding hands. For a few moments it was awkward, uncomfortable, both struggling for what to say before he turned and began to speak. "I really am sorry. Just Marjorie, I never meant to cause you pain. I promise I'll never hurt you again. I'm sorry too, I know you didn't mean to. I was just..." "I know," he said, and she moved closer, still leaning in and placing her head on his shoulder. He felt his arm go around her back, felt her move even closer, And for the longest time, they sat there like that, not speaking, just being together. When he heard her yawn, he chuckled loudly, forcing her to turn to look at him before she too began to laugh. "We should speak to your grandmother," he said when they finished, and he saw the breath hitch in her throat. "You mean to ask for my hand?" She said, her eyes sparkling and her lopsided smile on her face. "I'm a king. I mean to demand it," he said before laughing once again. "Is this truly what you wish?" "Just John," she said almost nervously. "It is just Marjorie," he said, and she smiled once again. They walked together through the halls, Arthur and Walder behind him, and he felt more like a king than he had ever done before. All the choices, all the decisions, and all the plans, all of it felt somewhat detached to him. This felt real, which meant that by the time they reached Olenna's Solar, he was once again the nervous boy he so rarely was these days. He felt Marjorie's hand take his, and they walked inside, Olenna sitting at her desk and looking even more menacing than usual. "Grandmother, John wishes to speak to you. We both do." "About what, sweetling?" "About the future, my lady. About our future," he said as he looked to Marjorie. Later, as he walked to Jaime's rooms, he was in a daze. Olenna had not only given her permission, but she had been so happy about it that he thought he was in the wrong room, thought he was speaking to the wrong person. She had asked to speak to Marjorie alone, and so he had reluctantly agreed to speak to her later, finding it hard to actually walk away and leave her there. When he reached Jaime's room, he knocked, and it was his lord himself who answered. He had much he needed to speak to him about, and since it concerned Arthur too, he asked him to join them. The rooms they'd given Jaime were no doubt the best in Highgarden, and after looking in on Joanna and seeing she was asleep, he asked Daisy if she wished to join them too, feeling the need of her opinions also. "What is it, John?" Jaime said when they sat down. "There are a few things, my lord, but I'll get the most important of them out first. I've asked Lady Marjorie to be my queen," he said, and saw both the smile on Daisy's face and the one on Jaime's, which, while happy, were not surprised. "You knew?" "We suspected, John. But we wished you to make your own choice, for you and Marjorie to decide it for yourselves," Daisy said. "So that's why, Olenna, you agreed to the match, didn't you?" he said, and Jaime nodded. "I'm sorry, John, but it's always the price for alliances. We could see how you cared about one another, and we hoped. But I'm sorry," Jaime said, and he nodded. "I think I knew too. I think I was just... Thank you for allowing us to, he said. And Daisy reached over and grabbed him, kneeling down to hug him in his seat. "I'm so happy for you, John, for the both of you," she said. And he smiled at how genuine she was and how she said it. "I thank you. There are other things, though, things I was not aware of until we arrived. My uncle is coming. He's bringing my cousins with him, which means we have a problem," he said, and it was Arthur who realized it first. "Cregan, I've told you. He's told you, Ashara too. He doesn't want it, John. It's not what he wishes for, nor what Ashara or your Uncle Brandon wished for," Arthur said. "I know, Arthur, but it's the fact of him. We can't hide him now. We need to tell my uncle. We need to speak to him and tell him the truth of things." "He's right, Arthur," Jaime said. And Arthur nodded. "I'll speak to Ashara, to Cregan. I'll see how they wish it to be done. Don't tell him until we speak. John, give me the time to speak to them both first." "Of course, do you wish me there?" "No, I'll do this. I'm sure they'll wish to speak to you after," Arthur said. "Which brings me to the next part, Sansa. I need to tell her the truth of things." "Are you sure, John?" Daisy asked. The longer it goes without me telling her, the worse it'll be. She's also having wolf dreams." "Wolf dreams?" Jamie asked. "Before I learned what it was to be a warg, I would dream of Ghost. I would dream of being on a hunt, of seeing through his eyes. I couldn't control it, and it only happened when I slept, but Sansa is having them too. I think they all are. I need to teach them, train them." "When is your uncle arriving?" Arthur asked. "The day after tomorrow, I think. Highgarden, 295 AC. Olenna. Sitting in the hall, at the feast that night, she felt happier than she had in a long time. Growing strong had never felt as good as it did right now. When John and Marjorie came to her earlier that day, she could never have imagined they would have realized their feelings that quickly. As she listened to them speak, as she heard John say he wished for Marjorie to be his queen, as she heard her granddaughter say the same thing, she rejoiced. While she had agreed with Jenna and with the others too, a small part of her, the smallest flicker inside her, doubted it. What if he decided he wished to marry another? What if he didn't wish to marry for an alliance? What if, like Daeron, his heart lay in another direction? So while she had accepted it, and while she believed, as they did, that John felt something for her granddaughter and she for him, she worried, only for today to prove it all for naught. Her little Rose had captured a king's heart completely, and he hers, and to know that not only was their alliance one built on mutual need, but was also now one of the heart. Olenna could ask for nothing more. When they were done speaking, she asked Marjorie to stay, asked her to speak to her, and John had almost seemed put out. She had smirked at that, only to find her granddaughter had felt the same. "Really, grandmother, could we have not spoken another time?" Marjorie said, and Olenna enjoyed seeing her granddaughter's thorns in full view. "No, my girl, we could not. Not after this silliness," she said, and Marjorie glowered at her. "John and I are not silly." Marjorie said, her voice firm. "No, you are not, which is why you cannot be seen to be holding hands, seen to be looking at each other with those eyes of yours." "We weren't. We didn't," Marjorie said as she looked to the floor. "Oh, my sweet little Rose, I know how it feels to look at a boy that way. I only ask that you and John refrain from being so public with your affections. It is dangerous, Marjorie, dangerous for both of you. But you are pleased, grandmother. You are pleased with the match," Marjorie said, biting her lower lip. "Does it please you, sweetling?" "It does, grandmother. It pleases me greatly," Marjorie said, smiling. "Then I am most pleased also," she said. And Marjorie ran behind the table to hug her tightly. As she looked out on the feast, she saw that while her words had been taken to heart by Marjorie, the two children, for they were children still, couldn't help the little looks they occasionally gave each other. Something which Ellery picked up on, both it and how she herself kept looking at both of them. She knew then she had no choice and would need to speak to her good daughter once again, this time telling her the truth. Mace would need to wait a little longer, and while telling Ellery was a risk, she would at least keep her oaf of a son from getting involved and doing something to ruin the most fortuitous match in House Tyrell's history. Which brought her to one of the other issues which she would need to speak to her son about, Oberyn Martell, and his invitation to the tourney. "You're very quiet tonight, my lady," Jaime Lannister said from beside her, a smirk on his face. "You know damn well why I'm quiet, did you know?" she asked, and though she wasn't upset, she found his smirk irritating. "I did not. It solves a lot of potential issues, though, and proves some no better than we," he said, surprising her as she had thought it. His idea. "It does, though with the stag coming, it creates others." "You think Robert may notice?" "Ha! Unless it's in a glass or falling out of a dress, that man would notice nothing. It's the mockingbird I speak of." Littlefinger's no trouble, my lady. Should he prove to be so, well, if a master of whispers can fall, anyone can. He said, and she had to give it to him. He did so with so much confidence she believed him. Why hasn't he? She asked. Timing, my lady. All things happen at the right time. She found herself once again surprised at Jaime Lannister, be it him, his brother, Jon, or a combination of them all. For people who only came to the game years ago, they were proving themselves adept at it. She reached forward and took a swallow of her wine. It was good to play with like-minded people, people who knew how to. The cost of failure was too high to play with those who did not. She asked Ellery to join her before she retired for the night, her good daughter only too happy to do so. As they sat in her solar, she tried to decide where to begin, what to tell her, and couldn't come up with anything other than the full truth. Marjorie and Jon Snow came to me today and told me they wished for a match, she said, and Ellery raised her eyebrow, which was far more preferable to what Mace would do if he were here, she thought, and resisted the urge to chuckle. And I agreed. Jon Snow was not bastard Ellery, far from it. Jon Snow is the true-born son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Targaryen. He is a king, and we mean to crown him. She watched as her good daughter took in the news. Ellery was surprised, shocked, and then also not. In less than a moment, her good daughter smiled and then nodded. You let them learn it for themselves, didn't you? That's what you meant about not pushing them together, nor dissuading them from each other. It was. Lord Jaime and I agreed to the match in return for our support. Lady Jenna asked that I give them time to realize how they felt themselves. She rightly suggested that a match based on love would be far stronger than a match based on need. Seeing them together, I can honestly say I'm glad for it. As am I. She is happy, my daughter. She is happy. You've seen her. Speak to her, Ellery. She'll tell you herself, and you'll know it true. What of Mace? She asked. Why do you think I'm speaking to you and not he? You don't wish him to treat Jon a king. Jay Harry's, she said, and Ellery smiled. Jay Harry's. I do not. It would give the game away, and we're not ready yet. But we will be. The dragons grow bigger. That he is. No, Ellery. The dragons grow bigger. You can't mean. I do. I've seen them myself, as has Marjorie. They will be good together, Ellery. They already are, Ellery said. And Olenna nodded in agreement. Highgarden, 295 AC. Sansa. While Jon had tried to give each of them equal attention last night, it was really only after he had told Joy her nighttime story that he had been able to speak to her more. He told her he would help her with Fang and showed her with ghosts just what it could be like. She had sat and looked on in wonder when the White Wolf had practically held a conversation with her as he left her to her room. Though what he said, how he said, it made her feel nervous. Seeing him so nervous was a surprise to her. Jon was perhaps the most confident person she knew, even more so than Marjorie or Loras, Robb, or even Willis. He walked at times as if he was more than he was. Lords, knights, she had seen few who carried themselves as he did, never arrogantly, but always confidently. So seeing him nervous preyed on her mind. It troubled her sleep, and as she broke her fast, she felt that Marjorie was looking at her oddly. She walked with her friend to the quietest part of the gardens. The secluded area had a small bench and a covered pavilion so you could sit in the shade. Seeing Jon sitting there, seeing his guards around so no one could enter, seeing Ghost, she felt her own nerves rise. If you need to speak to me, I'll be right outside, Marjorie said, and she nodded before walking in to join her brother. It's beautiful here. Are you happy, little sister? Jon said as she sat beside him. I am. Very much so. It's a dream. Marjorie, Willis, Garland, Lady Allery and Lord Mace and Lady Olenna. I've learned so much from them all. Thank you for suggesting it to Father. I only wished you to be happy. Seeing you so means so much to me, little sister, he said. And though he smiled, it was a sadder one than usual. John, what is it? What's wrong? He took her hand in his and raised it to his lips, kissing it. And as she looked to him, she swore she saw tears forming in his eyes. I have a secret to tell you, one I've kept from you. Partly I did so because I didn't know what it meant to myself, and partly I was afraid how you'd react. John, you can tell me anything. You know I'd never. She said before he interrupted her. I know that. I've never been worried about telling you, because I feared you'd reveal it. I've been worried because of what it may mean to us, to our family. John, you're scaring me, she said as she shivered. I'm sorry, little sister. I never meant that. So, he said as he embraced her, holding her tight. John, please tell me. Before I returned to Winterfell, I found out who my mother was, who my father was, he said. And just as she was feeling joy about him knowing the first of those things, the second resonated with her. But father? Is my uncle Sansa not my father? My father was Rhaegar Targaryen, my mother Lyanna Targaryen. But Rhaegar, he, Aunt Lyanna, you're not my brother, she said as her voice broke and she shook her head. I am your brother. I will always be your brother. Blood doesn't define that. You are my little sister. No one can ever take that from us. No one but us. She felt such a sense of relief hearing him say that. He thought her a little sister still. He was her big brother still. She shouted down the little voice in her head, the one which sounded like her mother's. He's not your brother. It shouted, and yet the louder one, the one she recognized as her own, shouted back, He's my brother, always. John, I don't understand, Rhaegar, Aunt Lyanna. They were married, Sansa. They fell in love, and they married. He handed her a letter, and as she read it, the battle she had with her tears was lost. Oh, John, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. He held her tight then, let her sob, and she felt his own tears fall, the wetness hitting her neck, and as they rolled down her back, she giggled. You're crying on me, she said. You started it, little sister, he said back, and hearing him call her that yet again made almost everything feel all right. You're going for it, aren't you? I am, Sansa, I have to. It's what they wished for me. You've not seen the king. You soon will. Tell me, after you've met him, if you think I should not. If you say I'm wrong, then I'll give it up. I'll not seek it. If you think he's who should sit the throne, then I'll abandon my pursuit. You give it up, you can't. You're king, you can't give it up. If I thought I was putting my family in danger, if I thought I was causing them pain, I'd give it up. I wish for this, Sansa. It's who I'm supposed to be. But family is more important, and I've lost enough of it for one lifetime. You'd be a good king, a great one. I'd be so proud of you, John, to see you crowned, she said. And he chuckled. So you're not proud of me now? He said, a smirk on his face. You know I am, she said firmly. As I am of you. Why, I've not done anything, she said as she shrugged. You don't see it. You don't see how you've grown. My fierce little sister is a wolf, a true wolf, he said. And she felt the pride well deep inside of her. They stayed there quietly for a few moments before she turned to him, eager to learn how he did what he did with Ghost. Will you teach me to be a warg? She asked. Close your eyes. He said as she did as he asked. Look for Fang. Picture her in your head. Can you see her? I imagine what she sees, what it feels like to be a wolf. Can you see it? Feel it? John. No, wait. I feel something. It's like something at the back of my head. Reach for it. That's Fang. You'll see a door. If it's open, walk inside. I see it, John. I see it, she said excitedly. Bring her here, he said. Though she barely heard him, the door was open, welcoming, and when she walked through it, she felt at home. She left dusk and began to move through the gardens. She was near, she was close, and could almost feel her 2 foot through the flowers, through the trees and the hedges. She saw the other one, the pretty 2 foot who smelt the flowers, the one her brother's 2 foot was closest to. She licked her hand as she passed her. She passed the giant 2 foot, the one like those from where mother and father had come from. She saw them then. The 2 foot who belonged to her brother and her own 2 foot, the one who belonged to her, the one kissed by fire. She licked her hand and then she was gone. But she felt happy because she knew she would return. Sansa? Sansa, are you all right? John, I did it. Sansa said as she opened her eyes. Aye, you did. Why? She reached out and rubbed Fang's head. She ran her fingers through the fur behind the ears and saw the wolf lean into her. She closed her eyes briefly and found the door still open, and she smiled. John took her arm and they walked from the garden and met a nervous Marjorie outside. Her friend looked from John to her. Sansa, John is my brother. Nothing can ever change that, she said, and both Marjorie and her brother smiled. John, kissing her cheek. Why? Nothing, he said as they headed back inside. Highgarden, 295 AC. Oberyn Martell. They had ridden up the Rose Road. The horses they brought with them far too numerous to take on a riverboat, meaning the journey took days longer than they had expected. It had been on the way that he had heard that the king and queen were attending, and each day he rode, he felt his fury rise. He hadn't seen Robert Baratheon in 10 years. He had no wish to see him now, unless it was at the end of his spear. Were it not for John, he'd have turned around and gone back to Dorne. But he needed to see his nephew, and with the stag arriving, he needed to provide a distraction. With him there, Robert, his guards, would focus on him. They'd worry about him. Robert would no doubt try and get under his skin, but for John, he'd allow it, something which irked his children. Surely you cannot mean for us to accept insults, father? Obara said angrily. We have a goal, a plan, my children. We will see your cousin on the throne, see Rhaenys fly and destroy the stag and the falcon. But we are snakes. We lie in wait, and sometimes we play weak. We choose when to strike. We do not allow others to choose for us. As you say, father, Nymeria said. What of the oath of Highgarden? Let him insult me all he wishes. I care not, so neither should you. Willis knows the truth, and were it the other way around, would you not feel as he does? I would, Tiny said. As he saw the keep come into view, he hoped he could keep to his own words. They rode through Highgarden and into the labyrinth, finally coming to the main entrance and seeing the Tyrells lined up. Willis smiled while his father scowled, and Oberyn smiled back at his friend, glad to have learned that he knew of John and looking forward to picking his mind. They dismounted and were welcomed how he expected. Mace was curt but polite, his wife less of the former and more of the latter. Willis welcomed him so friendly that Mace looked affronted by his own son. Sir Garland was less so, but it was Lady Marjorie who surprised him, the smile on her face, a true one. Welcome to Highgarden, my prince. the girl said, and he nodded, kissing her hand. I am honored to be here, my lady. Lady Ilaria, you look stunning, Marjorie said, and was he not speaking to the girl's grandmother at the time, then he'd have seen Mace almost fall over, though he did hear his snort. I look forward to seeing and learning more of your home, my lady, he said to Olenna as she allowed him to kiss her hand. I'm sure there is much for us to learn, my prince. The rooms they were taken to were no insult, and he wondered if Mace had allowed them to have these, or if Olenna had put her foot down. Either way, it didn't matter, and no sooner were they in them than there was a knock on the door. It's good to see you, uncle, Jon said, and Oberyn embraced his nephew once he'd walked into the room. You too, nephew, Aunt, he said as his paramour embraced his nephew even more warmly than he. Nephew, you look well. Happy even? Ilaria asked with a smirk. I am. I have some news for you both. I've agreed to a match with Lady Marjorie, Jon said, smiling, and he caught the look on Ilaria's face which said, Told you so. You're happy with this match? He asked, and Jon nodded. That I wish you both good fortune. Thank you, uncle. He had known the cost of Olenna's backing, known it would be a match, and while he had also expected Doran to suggest one, seeing Arianne with Tyrion and given who Tyrion was, they would perhaps be getting a prince too. But more than that, it was as Ilaria has said, they were a love match waiting to happen, and so he was glad his nephew had come to the same conclusion. You heard that Robert is coming? Jon said, taking a seat. We heard, he and the Queen. And Littlefinger, Jon said. We should remove him from the board, nephew. I like it. Not that he breathes. Not after what he planned. Oberyn said. Nor do I, but we need him where he is. Richard is watching him, and we have the knowledge of what he does to be used whenever we wish it so. What he does? Ilaria asked. He is cuckolding Jon Arryn. We believe the boy to be his, Jon said. And Oberyn smirked. You mean to inform Jon Arryn of this? Ilaria asked. When the time is right, I do. I don't understand. Why wait? Ilaria asked, and he looked to Jon, who nodded. Because, my love, imagine having to prepare your men for war, and then finding out your closest friend was sleeping with your wife. Your son was his and not yours. What does that do to you, to your standing? He said. And Ilaria nodded. To your allies. To your allies, Jon added. The Tullys, Ilaria said. Aye, the Riverlands are already fractured. How do the Tullys react should this come out? Should Jon Arryn remove his heir, accuse his wife of being unfaithful? Family, duty, honor, Oberyn said, and Jon laughed, as if they've ever lived up to their words. How is Tyrion, nephew? Ilaria asked. He is well, doing better at least. He has moments when it still hurts, still bothers him, but they are fewer, and he and Lygaron are getting closer. And my niece? Oberyn asked. Hey! Growing, ever growing. It's almost time, uncle. I can hear her in my head. She wishes for us to fly. So soon? Ilaria said, shocked. My sister's remarkable, Aunt. Oberyn couldn't help but agree, though it also made him feel regretful. He wondered what it would have been like to see her now, to see her grown. What would Rhaenys look like now had the Stag and Falcon not played their games? Uncle? Jon asked concernedly. What? Oh, don't mind me, nephew. Uncle, what is it? I was just thinking of Rhaenys, of how she'd look now. What she'd be like. She'd be glorious, Uncle. I can help you with that. I've seen her. Give me a day or so, and I'll draw her for you, Aegon and Elia too. Jon. You don't need to. I'd like to, Uncle. They talked about the Maesters and about Illyrio. Jon told him Richard would arrive during the tourney, and that before it was over he'd be fed up of feasts, which made both he and Ilaria laugh. After bidding them farewell, for now, John went off to speak to his cousins, knowing they'd be down on the sparring grounds and giving him and Ilaria some time to themselves. "He looks well, he's grown a lot," Ilaria said. "Too much, too soon. He's beginning to look more like his father." "Noticeable so?" she asked worriedly. "To those who knew him well, yes. To others, not so much. I worry about the Reach Lords recognizing him." "Would that not be a good thing?" Perhaps I just worry too much," he said, and she kissed his cheek before kissing his lips, her tongue forcing its way inside his mouth. Perhaps I should do something to remove your worries, my love." The feast that night was not as terrible as he had feared it may be. Mace didn't sit Ilaria at the high table, but the one they gave them was not as insulting as it could have been. He laughed and japed with his children, and over the course of the night, Jon, Marjorie, Sansa, and Joy all came to sit at his table. He was surprised to hear Ned Stark was arriving on the morrow, but he looked forward to it all the same. The king was still a few days away, and so he would enjoy this time for now. He hoped he could keep his anger in check once the stag and the mockingbird were under the same roof as his nephew. Highgarden, 295 AC. Robb, he loved sailing. He had come to find that in his time in White Harbor he loved it, be it on the sea or even now on the river. He enjoyed the feel of a ship or boat traveling through the water. Winifred even ribbed him about it, though he found he could soon distract her from that. The first time they had kissed had been a moon or so ago. How it happened he knew not, only that he was most happy that it did. Since then they had kissed more than once, and each time he had found that he had enjoyed it more. They had not done anything else. Just feeling her lips against his was more than enough for now. Besides, they would never seek to take advantage of the freedoms they were both allowed by doing something dishonorable. When he had visited Pentos a couple of moons earlier, he had heard the sailors speak, heard them talk of a house they went to where ladies were available. He had known of the brothel in Wintertown. Theon had mentioned it to him more than once, but still knowing of it and hearing men speak of such a place was something quite different. Theon, for all his bravado, was a boy. These were men, so he knew now what it meant to lay with a lady, and he had no wish to do so until he was wed. Thinking on Theon brought up mixed feelings. He had been shocked when he heard of the escape, that he would do such a thing, and yet the actions or lack of them by the crown made him wonder why he had not thought to do so earlier. Had their friendship meant so much to him? Was that why he stayed? Or was it simply that he was treated far better than he deserved? "I thought I'd find you out here," Winifred said as she walked towards him. "We'll be coming up on Highgarden soon. I thought I'd look at it. Something on your mind?" "No." "Not sure I like that. You're supposed to be thinking of me, Robb Stark." She pouted. "I find when I think of you, my lady, my mind keeps picturing your lips." He sat, and she leaned forward and gave him a quick peck on the mouth. "Really? Call that a kiss?" He japed, and before she could kiss him properly, he heard her father's voice. "There it is, Highgarden," Wylis said, and they both turned to look, seeing it in the distance. "It's beautiful," Winifred said. "Aye, it is." They rode from the docks to the keep, and he was amazed by the sheer amount of color around. The flowers, the smells, all of it combined to assault the senses, and he could see he wasn't the only one taking it all in. Winifred and Willa looked from one sight to the other, from the flowers to the fruit trees, from the pretty grasses to the crops, all with looks of amazement on their faces. When they reached the castle, he was surprised to see Lord Mace and his family outside, given how many lords had arrived already, and that Lord Wyman was, while a major lord, was not the most major here. But that soon gave way when he saw both his sister and brother standing with them, when he saw Grey Wind run to join in with Ghost and Fang's play. "Lord Manderley, I welcome you to Highgarden," Lord Mace said. "Lord Tyrell, I thank you for the invite," Lord Wyman said in return. "Ah, Lord Stark, I'm sure it's not I that you wish to speak to," Lord Mace said, and he nodded as he moved down the line. "It's good to see your brother," he heard Sansa say, and before he could answer, she had hugged him. "Aye, you too, Sansa, Robb, Jon," the two said before. They laughed and then hugged each other warmly. "I'm glad you've come, brother," Jon said. "Aye, me too. I've been wanting to spar with you for an age. Learn some new tricks, did you?" Jon asked, and he just smirked. He was shown to his room by Jon, Sansa, Loras, who he had hugged just as warmly as he had his brother and sister and Lady Marjorie, who was, he had to admit, a beauty. He was glad, though, that both Willa and Winifred were shown theirs too, as he had worried that they may, while not be left out, would almost be forgotten about in his family reunion. "Father is coming. Robb, he's to arrive later today." "For true?" he said excitedly. "Aye, Arya and Bran," Jon said. "The whole pack. Are the wolves coming too?" Robb asked. "They are, Leah, too." He smiled at that. When he had gotten his father's letter telling him of the wolf, it made it feel so right. That his father had his own. That they all had their own. Something just screamed, pack to him. However excited he was by his own arrival was now paling in comparison. Soon he would see his whole family. Though almost as soon as he thought of it, he felt guilty. Wasn't his mother part of their family too? She had written to him, and he had written back. Even if he didn't agree with what she said in her letters, she was still his mother, and he loved her. He had agreed he would, when possible, go visit her, that he would travel to see her and his uncle in Riverrun. And now, being here, he felt a little more guilty because of it. "Are you well?" Jon asked as the girls spoke to each other behind him. "I was thinking of my mother," he said sadly. "I'm sorry, Robb." "Thank you, Jon," he said before shaking the thoughts from his head. "Father will be here, and I can speak to him. When did you arrive?" he said, changing the subject. By the time he'd bathed and changed, a servant had arrived to tell him his father's party had been spotted. He hurried after the man following him to the main doors, and glad for his help. Gods only know what he'd have done without the man to follow. In his brief walk with Jon and Sansa earlier, he had already felt lost. As he walked outside, he saw Jon and Sansa playing with the wolves, Lady Marjorie giggling beside them. "Where are they?" he asked as he walked to them, and noticed Grey Wind was once again playing with his brother and sister. "Grandmother says they've just entered the town, Lord Robb. They should be here within the hour." "Thank you, milady," he said with a smile, which she retuned before he looked to see both Jon and Sansa hadn't even turned at his presence. "Do those two ever stop?" he said with a chuckle. "Careful, Stark. There are more of us than there are of you," Jon said, and he laughed. "For now, Jon, for now." Highgarden, 295 AC. Ned, traveling on the Pinnacle ship was like nothing he'd ever expected. To think that Jon had designed this ship was something he could barely comprehend. Just seeing Bear Island again, seeing what changes had been made to it, the docks, the new keep which was being built by the shore, the number of men working, all of it was incredible to him. To then see how much could be loaded on one of these ships and see how quickly they sailed. For the first few days, he'd been speechless. Mage had laughed at him when she saw him on deck, though she had admitted that she too had been taken aback by how well the she-bear sailed. With Mage going to the tourney, Ser Jorah could not, but he had insisted his wife and babe did. They were her family. and so reluctantly Linessi had agreed. He was glad she seemed to get on with Elle, though that was nothing to how well Arya and Lyanna got along. Never had he seen a girl so truly named as Lyanna Mormont. She epitomized the best of both her names, his sister's wildness and fierceness, and the sheer doggedness of the Mormonts. It was clear that just like Arya was for him, Lyanna was her mother's favorite, and he took to the girl immediately. They'll be good for each other. They're thick as thieves already, he said, chuckling as he ate his dinner one night. Hi, my little bear doesn't laugh often, but look at her. Ned, it's good to see her have fun. It is. I'd be tempted to let her go now, but I promised myself one more year. We'll wait for her, though I fear it'll be hard for them to part once we must. All of them had been left astounded by Old Town, to see the High Tower, the Citadel, and then to be feasted by Linesse's family. But it was the ride to Highgarden that opened his eyes, not the fruits or the crops, nor the flowers, but simply how well maintained and how easy to travel the Rose Road was. While he disliked the heat, and while his children loved the freshness of the fruits available, he was working out the travel time and was amazed. We need to do something with our roads. Mage, this the way this is. We should be able to travel this way. Aye, it'd make the trade easier, gods, Ned. Why weren't we trading before? She said, and there was no recrimination in it, simply a question. I think we're too stubborn, Mage. We don't see the benefits, only the changes. The benefits are too big to ignore, Ned. We can do so much more now because of them. Aye. And we will, he said as they stopped off for the night. It took them 2 more days to reach Highgarden itself, and while it was pretty enough, he could see both himself and Mage much preferred their own keeps. Still, he smiled, knowing that Sansa being here was right, that she'd have no doubt been happy. He'd find out for certain soon enough, and he found himself looking forward to seeing his children again. Robb, Sansa, Jon, he'd see them all. The Tyrells were lined up outside, and he looked to see if he could put faces to names. The large man must be Mace, and the woman beside him, his wife. The one with the cane was Willis, and the other must be Garland, Loras, he saw and nodded to, and the pretty girl beside him must be Marjorie. He laughed, though, when he saw the wolves run, Lya slower, but Nymeria and Summer had seen their siblings. Even the black one was here. Look, father, there's Jon and Sansa and Robb, Arya said, and he felt his heart race as he saw them all again. He gave Arya and Bran a warning look. They had been told to present themselves like Starks and to behave, and he hoped they would do so. As he walked over, he tried to remember the names, and for the briefest moment, he was lost. Lord Stark, welcome to Highgarden. 2, Lord Mace said, and he was relieved the name came to him. I thank you, Lord Tyrell, both for the invite and for my daughter. I am in your debt, my lord. Think nothing of it, my lord. Mace said, a large smile on his face as he introduced him to his wife. My lady, an honor. Lord Stark, may I present Lady Mage Mormont and Lady Jarell Serwyn, my lord, my lady. Mace said to Mage, who he knew was resisting the urge to roll her eyes. Lord Willis, my daughter writes of you often. My thanks to you for all you've done to make her feel so welcome, my lord. It is I who should be thankful. Lord Stark, Lady Sansa brightens up Highgarden with her presence. May I introduce my grandmother, the Lady Olenna Tyrell. My lady, I've wished to meet you for quite some time. And I have you, my lord. I look forward to speaking to you soon. As do I you, my lady. Sir Garland, my lord. Lord Loras, it's good to see you again. You too, Lord Stark. May I present my sister, Lady Marjorie Tyrell. My lady, I'm honored to meet you. Sansa has called you a true friend, and for that you have my gratitude. As you do mine, my lord, I am so happy to have my friend staying with me. Marjorie had her smile beaming. Sansa, he said, and she hugged him. Propriety be damned, and he heard Arya giggle. Father, I'm so happy you've come. Rob, he said, and was embraced by his son. Father, his son stiffly said, though warmly he was happy to hear. Jon, Lord Stark. And while it was formal, it was perhaps as friendly as he'd ever been greeted by Jon. Jon, he heard his daughter say excitedly, look at you. The little wolf is growing up and will soon be as big as Ghost, Jon said, and he laughed when he heard Arya mumble, stupid, under her breath, the smile on her face belying her words. Can we spar? Arya said. Really, that's the first thing you say? Jon chuckled. Aye, so can we. Sure we can. What say you, Bran? Do you wish to spar? His son said excitedly, and he shook his head. Children. Looking over his shoulder, he saw the truth of it. Laya, Ghost, Grey Wind, Fang, Nymeria, Summer, not children. These were wolves. He was glad of the rest when he got to his rooms, glad his children had decided to get reacquainted and give him time to rest, though the knock on his door changed that idea. Opening it, he found himself face to face with a ghost from the past. A specter from another time. He had faced and been lucky to walk away from a confrontation with this man once. Hopefully he was here on friendlier terms now. Stark. Arthur. He watched as the Sword of the Morning walked into his room. The man's hair was dyed, and he had grown a beard. But having known he was alive, having known he was with Jon, he had almost expected to see him. We need to talk, Stark, about your nephew. Jon. Has something happened? No, not Jon. You have another Cregan, Ashara's son with Brandon. What? He said, his voice unsteady. You should sit. This may take a while, Arthur said. And he did as he was bid. Your brother and my sister were in love. He and your father fought over this. It reached the point where your father threatened to strip him of his birthright if he refused to give her up. But you knew your brother. How do you think he reacted? Arthur said. He refused. There was letter. From Hoster. He demanded the marriage go through. He did. But by then it was too late. Brandon loved my sister. They planned to run away together, and well, you know the rest. But they lay together, and eventually they married, though by then it was beyond either of them to change the events. They married? Ashara can tell you more. But they did. While your brother was a prisoner, they married. They had already sworn their vows to each other in front of the heart tree, and though she couldn't release him, he pressed her to bring him a septon. That's as much as I know. Wait, Ashara. She's alive? She is. She and Cregan have been staying with me in Casterly Rock. Jon knows, he said angrily. He does. He wished to tell you himself, though I doubt he had planned to tell you here. But once he knew you were coming, he wished to speak to you. I decided to come to you first. Why didn't he tell me? How? A raven, a letter. This isn't something you just write down and send off. Even knowing you'd be the only one that receives such a letter, you think that's him? You think he'd act that way? No, he said, shaking his head. No, he wanted to tell you himself, but this is not his tale to tell. My sister wishes to speak to you. She'd like you to meet your nephew. She'd like for his family to meet him. He is truly Brandon's son. What are you suggesting? Arthur said, glaring at him. No, I didn't mean it that way. It was... I'm sorry, it's a shock. I have another nephew. A true-born son of my brother. You know what this means? It means nothing. He doesn't wish it. She doesn't wish it for him. It was never to be his. He is the rightful Lord of Winterfell. Talk to my sister Stark. It's not what he wants. You are Lord of Winterfell, just as your brother wished you to be," Arthur said, and he decided to leave it be for now. "Judd, how is he?" "He's good, Stark. There are things you need to speak to him on, your wife being one." "My wife?" "Speak to him. I'll arrange for you and Ashara to meet," Arthur said as he stood up. As he walked to the door, he saw him place a full helm on his face. With it, he looked like just another guard, and he hoped it would be enough to keep him from attention. Having him by Jon's side made him feel so much more relaxed about his nephew's safety. The man who tried to hurt Jon would need to pass by the Sword of the Morning, and he knew from experience there were few who could so do. "Arthur, I'm glad you're alive, as am I, Stark." As he washed in the bath, as he readied himself for the feast, his mind kept going to his nephew, or in this case, the nephew he hadn't known of. Was he a usurper, just like Robert? Was he denying yet another nephew his birthright? Arthur said he didn't want it, but was it just because of Jon he was saying that? He needed to speak to him. Speak to his mother. Gods, Ashara was alive. Brandon had married her, had loved her. What had his father done? Nan had said that his father had known. Had his thirst for power and influence really taken that much of a hold on him? Had he dismissed the feelings of his children simply to save face? It seemed he had. And reading those letters, reading the journal had forced Ned to swear he would not be the same. Was he, though? He felt her walk to his side, the wolf leaning into him, his hand in her fur. No, he wasn't. He would not be. He was doing what was best for his children. He was doing what was best for Jon. "Whatever he wishes, I will do it too," he said, and Lya licked his hand. The feast was long, and much different than the ones in the north. He was stunned to see Prince Oberyn here, even more so to see how Jon interacted with him. Jon laughing and joking with the prince's daughters, but seeing him with his own family was incredible. Sansa sat beside him with Lady Marjorie sitting to his other side, a little blonde girl and Arya both almost fighting to grab his attention. When he saw him get up and take the little blonde by the hand, he wondered what it was that he was doing, where he was going. "My daughter Joy, it's time for her story," a man who could only be a Lannister said, from a couple of seats down. "Gori, every night without fail, even though she's getting too big for it. But ever since he met her, she's been like a sister to him, and he the best brother she could ever wish for." "My own daughters feel the same, Lord. Geryon, Lord Stark. Geryon Lannister." "Eddard," he said. It was rare Ned laughed much, but hearing tales of the Yenchewers, as Geryon said his daughter called them, of Jon and Joy both riding their horses, he was brought back to his own youth, to Benjen and Lyanna, where then it was Lyanna leading her brother around by the hand. As he saw Jon come back into the room, as he saw him laugh with Arya and Lyanna, who really should be in their own beds, though he'd not deny them this, as he saw Sansa almost curl up when Jon made faces at her, he smiled. Robb, Loras, the large blonde, all of them laughing and japing, and then he saw him and he wondered how he'd missed him. The boy was Brandon's son, of that there was no doubt. He was sitting at the table, and were it not for Jon grabbing their attention, he had no doubt his children would be looking at their other cousin. He looked around the room and finally saw her. Her hair was blonde and she was older, but it was Ashara, and she was staring at him. He smiled, hoping it was friendly, and was glad to receive one in return. Before he could say anything, though, he saw Prince Oberyn and a beautiful woman standing in front of him. Lord Stark. "Prince Oberyn. May I introduce you to my own paramour, Ellaria Sand, my lady. A pleasure," he said, and was surprised at the smile that appeared on Oberyn's face. "I would like to speak to you, my lord. When you have more time, we have much to discuss." "We do?" "We do. You have heard the king is arriving, no?" No, I have, he said, grimacing, making Oberyn smile even more. I wish to thank you, Lord Stark. Unlike the man who sits the throne, you spoke up for my sister, for my niece and nephew. You spoke up for justice and honor, a trait you passed on to young Jon. You've met my son. Jon and I have met many times. A remarkable boy, one any man would be proud to call kin. Or any woman, Ilaria said. And as he tried to figure out the game they were playing, Jon arrived, evidently seeing them there. My prince, my lady. Ah, Jon, we were just telling Lord Stark of our meetings, of how we would be proud to call you kin. You honor me, my prince, my lady. Lord Stark, may we have a word? Of course, Jon. Prince Oberyn, Lady Ilaria. Lord Stark, the prince said, and he watched as he placed his hand on Jon's shoulder almost protectively. I'm sorry, my lord. We've not had a chance to catch up. There is much we must speak on. Indeed. Perhaps we can meet on the morrow. Does this place have a god's wood? Aye, the three singers. I'll come for you before we break our fast. Aye, it's good to see you, Lord Stark, Jon said, and he could see the eyes of the room on him. You too, Jon.